The following module discusses the Bros Logit life table system, which is a set of model life tables developed by Bros and colleagues in the years leading up to 1971. The method was initially developed against a background where there were inadequacies in the mortality data available, for which this method has developed in order to estimate life expectancies in an indirect way, facilitating calculations in a simple way. The life tables are often referred to as the Logit model life table system and is known its easiness to use, its flexibility with a possibility to adopt a range of standards. But there are also limitations, particularly with regard to developing countries, where if the correct standard is not selected, poor results may arise.
I am C.P. Prakasham, retired professor from International Institute for Population Sciences, Mumbai. Module 31, Bros Logit Life Table System. Learning objective. In this module, we are going to learn about model life table developed by Bros 1971. Rationale of Bros life table system, Logit equations, functions of Logit life table. The model life tables developed by United Nations and Cole and Deminy regional model life tables depends upon the types of available data it has used. Thus, the model life table system, which are heavily influenced by type of data used, may not conform to the pattern of mortality prevailing at that time. A model suggested by Bros 1971 features a standard life table and two parameters which, through a mathematical transformation, Logit, relates the standard life table to any life table. The general shape of the survivorship function is captured through the mortality standard, while the parameters help to capture deviations from the standard. Based on the expectation that on a suitably transformed age scale, the survivorship function PA of any life table should be linearly related to the survivorship function of any other life table or of a standard, that is P star A, by a level parameter alpha and a shape parameter beta. The transformation used is the Logit. Equation is Logit Px equals to 0.5 multiplied by ln whole 1 minus Pa divided by Pa close bracket. The advantage of the transformation is that it linearizes the survivor function Px. Logit linked linear equation is as follows. Logit Px equals to alpha plus beta logit Px suffix 5, where alpha effectively determines the level of mortality in the observed life table relative to the standard. Beta determines the relative importance of a child versus adult mortality in the observed relative to the standard tables. In the above equation, alpha is the level of mortality and beta is the slope of mortality, revealing age pattern of mortality. The Logit transformation of any life table can be expressed as linear function of the Logit transformation of any standard life table, where number 1, the standard has alpha equals to 0 and beta equals to 1. Number 2, an overall mortality that is lower than the standard gives a negative alpha. Number 3, heavier adult relative to child mortality gives beta is greater than 1.0, number 4, and vis-a-vis in both cases. Our modification of Brass-Logit transformation is based upon the observations that difference between observed and predicted Logit values follow a pattern that is predictable as the mortality level of the observed life table deviates from that of the standard. That is, deviation from linearity in the original Brass model are linked to the relative difference between the mortality levels of the standard and the mortality of the actual life table being estimated. We can generalize the principle underlying Brass approach to postulate that there is some transformation of the survivorship function such that all transferred survivorship functions are linearly functions of each other. If this transformation can be identified, then all survivorship functions can be expressed as a two-parameter transformation of all other survivorship functions. The transformation selected to modify the original Brass-Logit system includes three standard functions, small lx, x and mu x, which are age and sex specific but invariant across population. These functions need to be estimated from a database of life tables which are considered to adequately reflect the age-sex pattern of mortality in as many countries as possible. Brass and colleagues, Brass 1964, 1971, Brass and Cole 1968, developed a flexible two-parameter system of model life tables usually referred to as the Logit model life table system. Broadly speaking, the first parameter of this system of models, alpha, captures difference in the level of mortality between populations, and the second parameter, beta, variation between the population in the relationship between mortality in childhood and adulthood. The system of models is relation 1. Brass provides two standards, a general standard, African standard with heavier child mortality and particularly heavier child mortality relative to infant mortality. Any reliable life table can be used as a standard. The model has two parameters given a particular standard and can be fitted to any 2 points of observed life table. The Logit system is very easy to use and very flexible given the range of standards that can be adopted. However, in most developing countries, one has no basis on which to select a standard, and the choice of an appropriate one can give poor results. Further, old age mortality is sensitive to the values of beta, and values vary different from one can produce implausible level of old age mortality. One problem with Brass' original relational model is that the relationship between two survivorship functions in Logits is not always linear. Deviations from linearity appears to be particularly large when the observed mortality of a population is far from that of the standard. Thus, the complexity of variations in levels and age pattern of mortality is not fully captured by the Logit model. This observation led several authors to modify Brass' original model by including additional parameters that allow for bends in the survivorship function, Ziba 1979, Ibaka in 1983. This modification, however, is of little particular use because the additional parameters are difficult to estimate empirically and complicate the applicable of use of models. Discussions on Brass model. the Bross growth balance method assumptions. A stable population can be relaxed to an extent. Completeness in reporting of deaths is same across age groups above a particular age, generally 15 years. Population is close to migration can be relaxed if net migration is small relative to mortality rates, or if there is quality data of number of migrants by age group to include. During the 1960s, as there was inadequacy of data, there was a need to estimate life expectancy, for which indirect methods of estimation were derived, of which the Bross model was one. While the United Nations has done some work in this regard, census counts and age distributions were not considered adequate to understand mortality patterns. Bross method allowed for estimation of infant and childhood mortality from data of mother on the number of children ever born and surviving. The problem to estimate life expectancy arose, and the United Nations has done some work, but Bross method allowed for the calculation of life expectancy and also from population projection probabilities in a simple way. Life expectancy in many developing nations are estimated based on infant and child mortality data. Reference: Bross W. et al. 1968, The Demography, Tropical Africa, Princeton University. Bross W. 1971, On the Scale of Mortality, in Bross W. edited Biological Aspects of Demography, London, Taylors and Francis.